Hello there and welcome to another one of my videos. Today I'm going to be talking about why anger isn't maybe always a flaw, how it might actually be a bit underrated, and how it can be a source of awakening and almost be self-affirming, and how it's not always just the destructive force that we tend to think of. So these ideas are kind of based on a quote from a book. The book is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison actually won the Nobel Prize in Literature, so supposed to be quite a good writer, and I quite enjoyed the book as well. The book was published, I think, in the year 1970, and it kind of confronts the legacy of racism and of internalized shame and also beauty standards in especially in African Americans in the US. So there's quite a lot of heavy topics, quite a lot of interesting topics in this book. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm actually not American. I'm also not African American, which I think you also managed to notice. So I'm not going to talk about some of these maybe more interesting and important topics. I'm going to talk about anger. And so the quote that I'm going to base this stuff on is as follows. Anger is better. There is a sense of being in anger, a reality and presence, an awareness of worth. It is a lovely surging. So it's maybe not so common to hear someone talk about anger in this way, to describe it as a kind of lovely surging. I also think I should give some context from the book. This quote is from a moment where a character is kind of reflecting on the feelings of shame versus the feelings of anger. And these are kind of the emotions that define their survival and identity. And so in the context of the novel, the feeling of shame tends to dissolve identity. It makes a person feel small and invisible. And on the other side, you have anger, and anger kind of restores a sense of self and a sense of presence, and can even be a source of power. And this is not power over others. This is meant as just a sense of having power over yourself. So it's power over the self. And this moment is kind of a moment where anger becomes self-affirming, and it's not a destructive force. The characters, they are kind of taught to feel ugly and ashamed and worthless, and anger becomes a kind of resistance against this. And in the characters, it can help ignite a kind of sense of presence, a sense of kind of almost autonomy in their life. And so, in short, you could say that shame isolates and anger creates a sense of being and a sense of presence. And so the start of the quote is, anger is better. Well, why is anger better, and it's better than what? Well, the idea is that anger is better than being ashamed. It's better than shame because shame is passive. Anger, on the other hand, creates motion and a sense of being alive. And I think we all know this when we get mad and we feel like we could run through a wall. In that moment, we feel quite alive, and it can also be sorry, there's quite a lot of wind. There can also be a sense of this lovely surging occurring. Like, anger can also feel fucking good. Anger is quite a good remedy also for this sense of numbness that can occur for people that feel so invisible, ashamed and worthless. So to combat this feeling of numbness, anger is quite a good remedy. Now, personally, I subscribe more to the Stoic idea on this kind of emotions and stuff like that. But I am not blind to the charm of the use of anger for feeling a sense of being and worth. Now, the awareness of worth is also mentioned. anger is better, blah, 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 and then it creates an awareness of worth. Well, this also makes sense, because saying that, well, in this context at least, saying that I'm angry in this context is just another way of saying I deserve better. And if you're mad about something, it means that at least something matters to you. And so if you're angry on your own behalf, it means that you matter to yourself at least. And this is something that these characters need. And there's people walking around every day that need this sense of that they matter. So if you can get mad on your own behalf, it still means that you have some sense of worth, and that you know there is something worth being angry about. Now, the way they say it is a lovely surging, I think just makes this quote extra strong, because it's such a contrast to what we're imagining to be used in the context of anger, like the wording. And it kind of complicates a bit these ideas that we always have about what emotions are acceptable and what emotions are healthy. Especially healthy is such a weird thing to think about in these, when we talk about emotions as being healthy and unhealthy. And so we tend to think that being angry is unhealthy. And this quote kind of goes against that, because in this case anger is almost necessary. It's the only refuge these poor characters have. Now, talking about that anger is useful and anger is better than shame and all these things, this all works out quite nicely in this context, where someone is taught to be feeling worthless and ashamed and all of these things. This might not be the context that you or I exist in. So it's important to also remember that emotions don't actually give extra validity to anything. Getting more mad or feeling more strongly is not proof of you being more right about something. Also, feelings never absolve you of your responsibilities and of your actions either. This is something that I think children have not really gotten yet. Children often think that if they get more mad, their ideas or what they're thinking becomes more valid. For example, if you catch a child lying about something, they think that the more mad they get about the accusation, the more plausible it is that they were not lying. But you just caught them, so there's no use. And just because you're mad about something doesn't mean that you're right about it. The strength of your emotions have like no correlation to the actual validity. So these are just childish ideas, and this should not be one of the conclusions that you draw. Also, I think being at the mercy of your own feelings, especially anger, when living a rather comfortable life, is also not anything that we should value or cherish. It's kind of more a sign of weakness. If you're only governed by your emotions, you're kind of not even governed by your own self, by yourself. And so you're not even living your own life. You're living based on whatever direction the wind is blowing. And I think one of the Stoics as well, I think it was Seneca that said that anger, these are not the exact words, but something along the lines that anger often does you more harm than the thing that caused the anger, because it is a destructive force sometimes. But I still thought it was interesting to see anger mentioned in such a positive way, and how it can be useful to beat this numbness, and for how it can be a refuge against this sense of being worthless and of feeling invisible and all these things. Because anger, at the end of the day, is a powerful emotion, and it's not necessarily bad. It depends solely on the context, like many things. And so that was all I had to say about that today. If you have any ideas about this topic, it's a bit abstract and a bit hard to say anything concrete about it. But if you have anything you want to share, you can always write in the comments. And otherwise, that was it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.